Hey guys, this is Neek and Rest, and we have a special guest, Ashley Cole, and this is She with Alchemy. Today we will be discussing rising the price to access us. Yesterday's price is not today's price.
Yeah, so like Neat kind of said, we are talking about raising the price to access you, meaning that not everybody should have access to you. And just because there was somebody in your life previously who you allow into your space unfretted does not mean that you should still have to allow them access to you today. So some of this is kind of about boundaries, but some of this is really about self-introspection, having discernment and recognizing when it's time to cut away some of those people that's kind of just been baggage in our life that we kind of just been letting hang around. So first, let's kind of talk about why some people do this. Why do some people kind of just let hanger ons, I guess, stay in their life, continue getting access to them, even though every time they come around, it is draining, it is life sucking, it is not a fun, positive experience.
I think one reason is how we're kind of conditioned at times to think about love and relationships with our family, with our whomever. And that's become a fun question that I like to ask, in doing therapy with people. It's like what their views of love are, or like what they think should happen because of love, or just what they think about it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is like, you just give it your all, and no matter what, and like these very strong, like through it all. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like that kind of ties into this in a way, in a lot of ways, because it's like allowing people access to you even when they have proven that like they shouldn't have that access, or that it's toxic, or whatever the case may be. But it's like, but love. Mm-hmm. And because we believe that we have to hold on to that, however you define it, no matter what, we tend to continue to allow access to people even when they don't need it anymore, even when they shouldn't have it, and even when it can be harmful to us.
Yeah, when you said that, it made me think of like you, I always bring up like, okay, what do we think love is? Especially if someone see me about relationship issues. And I always find myself having to point out like this loyalty we have to very toxic things and people and relationships, and are feeling the need to like, but no, this is how I show I am loyal. Because love is loyalty, even at the cost of self. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's not what it is. And I hate it because I feel like if you're in my generation, the millennial generation, you grew up in the 90s, you were born early 90s, mid 80s, late 80s, somewhere in that space. We saw on TV a lot, we saw in music a lot, or heard in music a lot, just like being loyal to stupidity. He cheated on you. He got a baby with your mama. He went through all your bridesmaids at the wedding, but you stuck by him because you loyal, girl. And that's what I'm talking. And it's just like, no. But even not even going past love, I see this a lot in friendships as well. I see a lot in friendships as well, where you're like talking to folks and they're talking to you about their friendship, and you're like, And so she slept with your man. She was your bridesmaid. Interesting, fascinating. And it's just like, but we there's so much loyalty, and I've known her since 6th grade, and it's like, and I don't understand why we didn't cut her off in 6th grade. Why are we holding on to this?
Yeah, I think it's just the history of it most of the time. And it's like, yeah, I know this person since 3rd grade, this person since high school. Like, I can't let them go. But like in relationships, I think it's also like, as you said, it's the love situation. And this is just how I show my love. Me personally, I'm not a ride or dyer, but I can see how women, how they get caught up in that and say, no, this is love. We love each other. But is this benefiting you any type of way? So, yeah.
It's also really lacking in self-love. Like, because if that's I think, supposed to be your first love. You know, you gotta love yourself. But we don't get taught that. We really don't get conditioned to be that way. Some people consider it to be selfish if you even, you know, talk too much about it. But having self-love, you know, is what allows you to be able to say, you know, I'm gonna put me first. I'm gonna put me first. You know, to be able to be like, oh wait, no, this is harmful to me. Like engaging with you is harmful to me. So I mean, if that's the case, we you know, boundaries and or allowing people access to a lot of different things. But yeah, definitely when it's harmful to you, I think it's like a lack of self-love to not even be able to acknowledge that like, I can't be engaged with this because it's harmful to me.
Yeah.
I just think we were never taught that. Like, you know, like we talk about what we learned back in the 80s, whatever, 90s, whatever. We just was never taught self-love until now. You gotta do this because mama said so, said you gotta do this, and you gotta, like, so it's just like, yeah, we were never taught anything about self-love.
That's exactly what I was going to say as well. Like now, as I was listening to Ashley say that, I'm like, to be honest, I don't think anybody ever set me down to talk about self-love. I think my therapist, when I was like 25, was the first person that was like, okay, what does loving yourself look like? Like, you know, you had the conversations of like, don't let nobody hit you. Don't let nobody put their hands on you. You know, you had the conversation of, you know, don't be out here hot in the pants, giving it up to everybody. You had those talks, but like no one ever actually set me down and was like, if somebody makes you feel off and you feel uncomfortable in their energy, now you need to reevaluate how much you want them in your energy. You need to check in with self. You need to learn to process. You're like, no one set me down and had that conversation. And I'm listening to you guys talk about it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely just went off into the world making friends and lovers. And nobody had ever once like broke it down to me how to love myself first. So my first experience with love was, you know, through family, which can be positive and toxic. But on friendship levels and on romantic relationship levels, I was out here interacting with other, you know, 8-year-olds and 15-year-old boys who had no idea what they were doing. And we were just out here, you know, bumping into each other, creating traumas because none of us have ever had anybody really sit us down and be like, okay, let's talk about what self-love is before I tell you to go out here and push your morph version of love on other people.
And I also think the messaging, or at least the first lessons that people can get or think about self-love, tend to be very superficial, you know, because I would have never until my awakening, until like my 30s, I would have never like said I was insecure or had any self-esteem type issues, because I love me, you know, look at me, I'm fine, I'm this, I got that, I'm that. But the act of self-love, like, you know, like setting boundaries, like doing those, not engaging in things that are harmful to you. You know, even when you can think of all the reasons in the world to justify it. Like, I mean, there are so many things that I look back on now and it doesn't make sense anymore. I don't know how I made it make sense, you know?
I remember being 25, speaking with my therapist and him being like, this is an issue of self-esteem, and me being like, first of all, let me, and like having that in there, like, first of all, I went to school for this, I graduated with this, I am fine, I love myself, blah 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 blah. And him just, like you said, like breaking it down, like but what are your actions saying? Are your actions saying that I love myself? Because we ain't here talking about setting fires to things we don't need to set fires to because somebody made us mad. So let's discuss that. Is that what we do when we love ourselves? You know, we allow someone to take us so outside of our personality, out of our comfort range, because we want them to prove to us that they love us, you know, different things like that. But again, like you said, it's said to us so superficially. It's said to us like, you're so smart, you're so pretty, cool, I know that, but no one ever told me, like, because you have everything you need within you, do not let this little boy take you out of character. Do not chase this little boy outside of your character because you're looking for him to feel something within you. That's not loving ourselves. loving ourselves is figuring out, okay, what is it in me that makes me want to chase this? Because that means there's something I feel like I'm lacking and I'm trying to get it from outside of me. Why am I trying to get it from, like, no one taught me that. A grown man in my mid-20s told me about it, and I didn't trust it until I turned 30. So that's where we are.
Yeah, I don't think I know any of this until I turned 30. And then going back to like lessons my mom taught me, she taught me to be independent and not to depend on a man. Nothing about self-love. And so it's like you don't got to depend on them, but you kind of like it wasn't anything touching self-love. It's just don't depend on them and get your own money. But that's about all she told me.
Take care of you. And that's But how? But there's so many ways to take care, right?
Yeah, so that's the only one. Just worry about your money. Not anything about your inner self, your happiness, any of the other things. So yeah.
But they didn't know. That's why our generation is healing our parents.
Oh gosh.
As we learn and just freely share things like, hey, I was talking to my therapist and I thought I would tell you.
Hey, I know she keeps telling that story like a joke, but that's abuse, mama. Anyways, what we cooking for dinner? Yeah.
Well,
we don't need to get into that. But I will say, I do feel like we were raised with parents who were like, I have to teach you to survive and I have to teach you to be on defense mode because the world is scary. The world is cruel to women, to Black children, to Black women or Black female children. And because they were so focused on the defense mode, like I sometimes wonder, like, maybe they didn't think we'll have a moment to be soft. So they didn't think to install that softness and that love and that self-care because they're like, the world is cruel and I just want you to be able to survive. Very Darwinism type thinking. And like now we out here surviving, but our mental health is like weak. And we're like, okay, how do we do that soft stuff? And they don't know either.
Yeah. They couldn't teach us anything they didn't know. Just anything they didn't know. Because, like our grandmother stayed with that man that cheated on them and had 50 million kids on the side. So it's just like this, they just didn't know no better. But we can't do that. You can't do that. We gotta let grandpa go. That's your kids. So yeah.
It's a completely new concept. So some of the things that kind of came up when it comes to this topics is that some people struggle with putting blocks to assessing them out of a fear of one, wanting to be chosen. For some people, this is a thing where it can be an ex, it can be a job that's toxic, it can be a friend who they are outgrown. Just knowing that when those people come or when those people want to hang out with somebody or, he wants to take somebody on a date, even though we know like, I don't like how this interact, this feels like a bad look, that whole feeling of euphoria you get from knowing, oh, but I'm the person that came to mind. And it's kind of like a little like dopamine hit of like, oh, yes, I'm that girl. I'm that person. And for some people, this is why they allow people to keep having access to them. It feels like it's filling an emotional hole or emotional gap that kind of what we talked about, self-esteem is supposed to be able to do and heal. Is this something you feel like you guys have seen?
When you were saying that, I was thinking about, because I always say like how I realized that like I don't have to pull every thread. Like just because it's available to me or being offered to me or so, like does not mean that I have to, but it is to get that, like you said, it's like that hit of like, ooh, like, oh, somebody wants me, somebody likes me, somebody, whatever the case may be. It just don't even make sense anymore. I can't comment on it because it just seems so crazy.
It feels crazy explaining out loud because I think it goes back to that self-esteem thing. When people say, but this sounds like a self-esteem issue, you want to immediately say no, because when we think self-esteem issues, we think of the like little wallflower girl who like twirls her hair, looks down at the floor, doesn't look people in the eye. And it's like, no, it's also the bad and bougie bitch on Instagram with 1,000 followers and posts 50 million selfies a day. She can also be having her own self-esteem issues. And I think it's the same with this one, where it's a matter of like not wanting to say that out loud. Like, no, I'm trying to fill emotional gaps with people. But like, if you knew he was draining to you and you knew he's a bad look and you knew like, I don't even think I really like being around him for real, but he kind of want me. So maybe I will just like entertain this on the low a little bit.
It's also, I think, keeping your options too open. I've been fussing with a friend of mine about this lately, about having standards. You cannot allow everybody access to you, because I've literally been saying this, like, everyone does not deserve access to you. And this friend feels like, well, you know, like I have to have these open because I have to be open to who wants me, like as if they can't pick.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so it's like I gotta be, and I'm like, no, you're looking for one person. Like, I feel like when you get to that point, because I feel like I'm there, I'm being intentional. I'm looking for one person. I don't have to allow all of the men that find me attractive access to me. I ain't looking for all of them. I'm looking for one person. But even doing that, we try to make ourselves too available and too open because we feel like that's how we have to be to get chosen. You know, it's like, gosh, well, you know, okay, well, I'm already in my 30s. I can't say, you know, that I don't want someone that doesn't have any kids. Some people have that. Some people don't care, whatever the case may be. But people have that, and we feel like, well, I can't ask for that, or I can't say that I want some. Oh, I should probably lower my standards, you know. And it's like, for what? So you don't need all the fish in the sea don't have to come through this net. I don't want to do all that doggone filtering. No, thank you. And while we're playing that game, because that's the other thing of it, like, and it's playing that game, right? Because it's fun. That's dating for a lot of people. You know, just going to that dinner just because, oh, he's funny, he's good company, I can go, it's whatever the heck we be doing. But allowing people to have all that, because we're also like engaging with them, their energy, when they, you know, do us wrong or say something out there or whatever, like that stuff, like, it matters. It's not like they're not like throwaway interactions. They still have an impact on us. And you sitting around wondering why you feel like don't nobody want you, because you interacting with fools that don't really want you. Because you giving everybody access. Found it.
The whole message. Yeah, I'm like you were saying, Res, like you're going to this interaction, like, but why am I really going here? I think that's me personally. Like, but what are we really doing here? And it may be because this person is choosing me for the moment, but do I really want to be chosen by them, or am I just lonely? Or for me, sometimes that I'm getting older and I want some things in life, but it's still not bringing happiness. And you're holding on to that person when you could be, it's messing you up for other opportunities. So
I, even as both of you guys were talking, I'm like, no, definitely like 2 years ago, I feel like that's how I was dating, where it was just more so, it wasn't intentional. So it was a lot of operating out of like, I mean, I'm that girl. Look at me. I gotta date on Thursday, I gotta date on Wednesday, I gotta date on Friday, I gotta find a babysitter for Sunday. Like, and just operating out of that. But it was that energetic exchange where I got depleted real quickly and was just like, I can't keep doing this because this is depleting. And having to go back and do a full circle moment of like, why am I even doing this? Why am I hanging out with this many people? Why am I allowing this many people to have access to me? And having to sit down with myself and figure out the answer to that of like, okay, and why are we allowing access? Why are we trying to catch all the fish in the sea when the truth is we only want one?
So the savior martyr complex, another reason why a lot of people will allow someone to keep having access to them is when they feel like I would say when they've gaslit themselves into believing that they are such a blessing and a gift, or that they are necessary in this person's life. And that is why they must hold on. I'm the only one. I'm the only one who will be there for them. I'm the only one who can save them. I'm the last person who cares. Oh, the chokehold that can have on people, on women, on people in general. But I'm gonna say women because I know, oh goodness, I know I've done that foolishness to myself of like, you know, if I have to answer the phone because I'm the only person, you know, he can tell this to. Who the heck cares? And he needs to go build a new circle of friends. Like that's like when you learn that like that's not my fault, you know, that you don't have anybody else to connect with. I'm sorry, but it's not gonna be me. But yes, that is the thing that I have seen in people, and unfortunately in a lot of very toxic and sometimes very abusive situations too, that can lead to a lot of enabling type of behavior as well. Like when you feel like you're the pillar for someone. People do this in their family. People feel like they're the pillar of their family, and I can't pull away because then Uncle Joe will never get his life together. Like Uncle Joe is 63. That's been his job, you know, for 40 some odd years to get his life.
Or mama and daddy, they can't because I'm the only mama and daddy had a whole life before you, and they was doing fine. They was doing fine. They grown, they know exactly how to do all this stuff. You just took up the role and it made it easier on them. So they were like, all right, well, cool. But like, they will go on if you go and live your best life. I will say this was an issue for me in jobs. I will say this was definitely an issue for me in jobs. Ashley, me and you worked together at a very particular place where like, I was coming in on Saturday. We were coming in on Saturdays. We were both coming in on Saturdays, working with the mindset, well, because if I don't do this, his court case might be delayed and blah, 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 blah. And then blah, blah, blah. And like causing all this unnecessary stress. I was at a particular job where a lot of good workers quit and we could not find any good workers. So it was like a team of 4 good workers and like 6 people bullshitting, carrying this team. And I remember I would say 3 out of the 4 of us were like staying late. We're picking up extra cases. We're covering for folks who weren't really working. And it was all out of this mindset, like, well, if I don't do it, who's going to do it? You know? And it even got to like, and our boss is such a good boss, and she was a good boss. And if, you know, she needs people that she can depend on. It even got to the point that when I left this job, y'all, I originally planned to leave earlier. And then I felt so bad that I came and redid my same day that I turned in my resignation, redid it to stay extra to help out. Because when I said like I was leaving, my boss was like, okay, I understand. But I saw like kind of like the panic and was like, oh, okay, well, no, I'll stay longer and blah, blah, blah. And guess what? That place is still up and running. That place still up and running. People still having court cases. It did not burn down to the ground because I left. Like,
I believe in stuff like just randomly calling out. I feel like you need to see that the building will still stand without you. Like it's one thing to have scheduled, not even just calling out, but just it's one thing to have like a weekend and scheduled days off and holidays. But I feel like you really need to go ahead and take your vacation like a Tuesday, a Wednesday, just step out of it. Just see that it's okay. Like, see, because when you drop dead, they still gonna post that job
within the hours. Like, I think I learned that the hard way, like giving a job all of me, and then when I needed some type of support, it wasn't given. So it was just like, I'm so burnt out over this job, but y'all can care less about anything that's going on with me. And I talked to the rest about that. And then after that, I'm just like, well, I don't like this place. I'm gone. So I kind of cured that. But it took me a while to learn, like, you can't take all that on for what? What is it benefiting?
And I think some people have to be careful because for some of us, I think this is situational, it's jobs, you know, but we're better in personal life, or it's family, but we're better in romantic relationship. But for some people, this is a whole personality where they really feel like I need to feel needed. So they put themselves in situations that aren't good so they can feel that savior complex, that see, I came in to say I can't go. What would they do without me? But that also is like feeding into that ego of like, this is who I am. I am the sacrificer. I am the sacrificial lamb. This is what I do for folks. And it sucks though, because those are the same folks that end up like, I'm so exhausted, blah, blah, blah. We're like, oh, stop doing all this shit. And they're like, no, this is my shit and I want to hold on to it.
What else would I do? Go see a movie.
Live your best life.
Another problem that people have with regulating the price is simply not having any type of boundaries. in this case, people never was taught to set boundaries or just never knew how to hold on to the boundaries or didn't know what boundaries were or is. So they never knew how to enforce it. Me personally, I think this is my thing. And I'm not sure everybody knows they have that access, but I allow it so much. I'm doing better now, but I have allowed it so much throughout my life, even from childhood to now. So it's just like Ashley was saying, it's like they'll get used to that. Like that's just you. So this is just how it's gonna be. And then me not knowing how to step in and put up boundaries, I just go in a cycle again. But I'm working on it. I'm doing better. But this is like a big one that I struggle with.
And I think I love when you bring it back to that, like, just something I struggle with childhood, because I think it's so important us to remember those of us who are raising kids now that will one day raise kids, how important it is to teach us these things when we're younger. You can't just imaginatively expect your child to grow up, become an adult, and just know how to do things you have not taught them how to do. If we never, as we were talking about earlier, we never had that talk about self-love. Simply telling me that I'm pretty and I'm smart is not going to equate to me understanding how to practice self-love in action. And back to what Nika was saying, like, if I wasn't allowed to have boundaries when I was a kid, or not even not allowed, but no one taught me the importance of boundaries and what it means to stick by a boundary, how am I supposed to become an adult and just automatically do that unless I go through a series of events that makes it that so that I absolutely have to? But now I had to go through that painful, period of my life to even come up with that, when you could have just taught me this as a child. And I know me and Nick talk about this together all the time, but like, it's one of those things that I do with my daughter. Like when we're with family and they're like, oh, give me a kiss. And she says she don't want a kiss. I'm like, okay, do not press her, baby, go play. And I explain it to older folks in my family of like, no, she does not feel like being touched right now. I want that to be respected. I want her to know she has control over who touches her body. That is something that she does not have to force herself into situations. I want it to be automatic for her that when things don't feel right or awkward, that she can say no and can walk away. We practice at home and in the family. That's where she's going to learn that. I don't want her to have to learn that out in the real world after a series of unfortunate events.
I think for me, as a child, I didn't have a voice. So I try to reinforce, like, it's what you said basically, but even if I'm seeing that I'm putting too much on my child and she's like said, she speaks up about it, she's allowed to, we're going to have this conversation. Like, I never was able to have any conversation, so that's leave me, which I'm talking to my therapist right now, like how I don't know how to express myself because I never had the chance to do it, or I don't even open up because it's like I wasn't allowed to open up then. So all of this is going back to boundaries and everything else. But I'm just saying that to say I'm trying to do better with my child, and so like a whole process that I have to talk myself down and come back and say, let's talk about this. When you're 35 like me, talk to me, please. But yes, and that's what, even like at school, I like see like, how are you doing at school? Do you want to talk to that friend? Is this friend like, do you want to do this? She does her own thing, and I say, if you're okay with doing your own thing, keep doing that. Like, don't let anybody tell you no different. If you don't want to be with that person, don't do it. Like, you're gonna learn a lot of stuff that mommy needed to learn. So yeah.
And parents, hold on, because it's hard teaching your parents that, your kids that way. Because my daughter be trying the hell out of me. She'll come home with on red. I'm like, why are you on red? Because I did not feel like sitting down. This is an actual conversation me and her had. She got a red mark because she refused to sit all day. And I was like, baby, why didn't you just sit? And she was like, because I could do it standing up. And I was like, fuck, she got a point. She definitely got a point.
Why conform when I can do it better?
And I definitely have that little girl who is just like, because I'm like, very talk, express yourself. She does. And then I have to talk to other adults about her expressing herself. Because I always somehow end up in a hot chair. So it's hard to do, but do it. Let our little girls, be free and have opinions early, and let them, like, our small annoyances are things that are going to help build them into great, strong women who did not have to go through some of the bullshit we had to go through to find ourselves. because they got to figure it out safe at home with a safety guard support of parents backing them, instead of 25 wild out of control with only other 25-year-olds giving them advice.
I was just going to add, I guess, also modeling boundaries, like how not only respecting your child's boundaries helps to teach them, but they observe you and how you interact with others and people around you. So that's a helpful tool to teach boundaries as well, when you model it and practice it and, add it to your lecturing rotation.
Yeah. Just quickly on that, I want to say though, the amount of times I have to talk to people that are just like, and my child does blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, and where do you think they get that from? I don't know. And then like an hour into the story, they tell me how they also do blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, okay, so that's where the child gets it from. Because whether we want to or not, we are modeling from the child, especially relationships. And I really want us to get into that, because there seems to be, even with my generation, I feel like that's a thing. When I talk to other people our age group, and they're just like, yeah, my parents are just like, I don't know, why you have trust issues and commitment issues. And it's like, well, I saw you cheating on mom her whole marriage. So that's why it's hard for me, Dad. Like, you weren't a great example. And I'm now very confused about what masculinity and being a husband means. Or even for like the girls, just on the side of like, well, she picks bad men and I don't understand, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, but Dad was mean and an alcoholic and a drunk. You just stayed. He just didn't have commitment issues. She's dating the ones with commitment issues, but they're the same version of the person you let raise her for 20 something years. And I'm not saying that we can magically make all our problems in our relationships go away and hide them from the kids or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm saying, there are some major red flags that I think sometimes adults like to act like the kids don't pick up on. And they do.
Heck, even a major state. I'm thinking about, you were saying that, and I was thinking, my mom literally taught me that men were dogs and unreliable and just all these things. So I had to be so hyper independent, and take care of myself, because you just never, because goodness me, if I got pregnant, he was always going to end up with Susan. That was like the woman she had created that my man was always going to end up with. My man was always going to Susan. And all of these ways that if you don't do this, and it was just, I don't even know if she realizes how much she would contradict herself at times, because there was like this list of things that I had to do to keep a man, but also a list of things that I needed to do to be very independent, because you can't trust them. It just set up this conundrum of like, so I got to jump through all of these hoops to keep, why have them? Why have them? And then she turns around one day and says, I don't know what's going on with you dating all these men. Well, what is the point? What value do they have? I remember I wrote a paper on this, because I did not develop. I have a level of respect for men and their gender specific issues in our society. Patriarchy is bad for all of us. But that came from becoming a feminist. From going to college and like becoming a feminist and really looking at gender and all these different things to really because she literally taught me. and not just from her. I mean, I also saw it. I came from a family with a lot of single mothers. My father wasn't actively present, so it was like they weren't unnecessary or a staple, or because everybody was fine really otherwise. So
modeling it, guys, modeling it with our actions. But you know what? It used to be a saying in the 90s. Like, I say it all the time, do as I say, not as I do. That's not how the fuck that works. No, that's not how that works.
I see you.
And they legit used to say that to us as kids. Like, that was a thing. That's not how that works.
You couldn't ask why.
And you couldn't even question it.
You had to be seen and heard.
Mm-hmm. And now, what came of that? A whole bunch of 30-year-olds with podcasts. That's what happened. Y'all didn't let us be heard then. We gonna be heard now. Full circle moment.
listen to this. Now, somebody gonna listen. Yesterday's price. So the title, Yesterday's Price is Not Today's Price, is making me think of the fact that you are allowed to raise the price on who has access to you and what it takes to have access to you. I feel like as we, this is why I think we have talked so much about like kind of letting go of people, because it does become this kind of dead weight situation at times, because we don't realize or we should realize, like, as we grow, as we develop, as we do new things, we are allowed to set a new standard. Just because we were okay with something, I don't care if I was okay with it yesterday. If I'm not okay with it today, then I don't have to be okay with it. Because people love to, throw things like that back in people's like, well, you used to, or whatever, or how we, whatever. Bump that. That does not matter. You are allowed to raise the price. You determine your worth and your value. And in doing so, you determine who has access to you. Nobody else gets to pick that. And you are allowed to raise the price. I don't care if you do it today or a year from now.
And I don't think a lot of people understand like how much you stunt your own growth by not doing it. Like, I think of it while you're talking, I was in my head visualizing like in business sense, like, okay, if you're paying me $10 to babysit when I'm in high school, but then I go and get a bachelor's degree in childhood education, right? I know about nutrition. I know how to fix healthy meals. I know how to tutor your kids specifically if they're failing in math, blah, 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 blah. And I come back and you're like, okay, I'm going to pay you $10. No, my experience is different. My level of maturity and growth is different. My ability to even help you is different. I'm not taking no $10. I'm trying to be your au pair. My prices are now $30 an hour. Okay. Each level, like we understand, like, yeah, no, you raise the price because you got more education, you got more experience, you got more whatever it is. But the same thing needs to be done with ourselves in that personal level of like, okay, but I'm no longer the same Russ. I am no longer doing the same things 21-year-old Russ was doing. I'm no longer interested in the same things 25-year-old Russ was interested in. And now you can't have access to me with bottomless mimosas on a Sunday at brunch. And now I'm sitting there being your therapist over mimosas. Now I want people who have engaging conversations. And I want people I can go out with that can talk to me about more than just sex and relationships. I want deep, thrilling conversations. And I don't want to go to the club in 5-inch heels. I want to go to the museum. I want to be able to bring my daughter. All these things. And there's nothing wrong with that. You do not have to stay loyal to the old idea of who you were.
Mm-hmm. So basically, it's super important to like protect ourselves and really being intentional. We have to remind ourselves that you are not selfish for putting yourself first and wanting to be intentional about what makes you happy, and just learning that it's not a selfish thing.
A lot of us are taught that love is overextending ourselves. I know lots of men have been taught this too, but I can only speak from the perspective of a woman. I feel like all of my girlfriends, this was something we were taught at an early age, that when you love people, you let them cross your boundaries, you overextend yourself, and that pulling back from that is selfish. And we have to really work hard to flip that whole idea around. I know even for myself, when I first read this, and it was saying like, you have to protect yourself, only allow people that serve you in the ways that you serve them. I was like, oh, that's kind of harsh. I'm gonna change the tone of that. I want to change the words of that a little. And I was like, why do you feel that's harsh? That's exactly what it is. It is what it is. You need to have reciprocity in whatever things you're doing. If I'm putting into a friendship, I need to feel like I'm getting the same thing back from that friendship. And that's not selfish. That is not opportunistic. That's not anything. That's self-preservation. That is peace preservation. That is, looking out, that is showing self-love, because I am now no longer just giving away myself freely at the risk of hurting myself emotionally, mentally, or whatever. And the same thing needs to be in it for relationships. I think with work, it's a little easier to see, because I think we're now in this space and this time where a lot of people are promoting, like, stop putting into these jobs that you hate, that are just soul sucking. Go find something that you love, that passion. And that's just another way of like, find something that fills you. When you're going to be spending 40 hours a week doing it, it needs to be something that fills you back, that you don't walk away drained from. You need to walk away feeling like, at least I feel passionate. At least I'm paid well. At least I'm something, because we know what it feels like to be in a job that we hate and we feel like we're just giving, and we're not getting back how much we give in. But now it's time to also have a revolution around that when it comes to relationships and friendships as well.
And getting something back, because I think people do get caught in like being super transactional, when what you could get from a good friendship, for example, good company, good conversation, emotional support. I mean, so many great things come out of connecting with people that don't seem so transactional. But like I was saying earlier, like an example of, someone constantly dumping on you, but they're not a safe space for you to share. Or, those people who fuel maybe your more negative emotions, those that you would rather not experience that often, people who only cater to that side, those are
people you need to raise the price on.
Raise the price.
With that said, guys, that has been our episode. We hope that you have enjoyed. Thank you again, Ashley, for coming on and talking with us today. Do you want to plug your stuff?
Sure. You can follow me at mickey.explores.it.all on Instagram.
Yes, so follow her. She does amazing work in her community. She's not sharing that page, and that's fine. But on her Mickey page, she does all types of cool exploring stuff, just Black girl and nature stuff, and I love it. She's a really good gardener. She does not talk about it, but she's a really good gardener. She posts all her stuff on there where her plants are growing and everything. And she's been doing so great. But also you get to see her hiking, canoeing, climbing up mountains, fighting Billy Bobs, all of that. It's fun, great stuff. So follow her.
Trying to get y'all outside.
Trying to get people outside. Other than that, guys, we'll have a new episode for you next Thursday. Follow us on Instagram. The Instagram is She Wolf Alchemy. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and leave us a review. Leave us some review with words. Other than that, guys, we'll have a new episode for you next week. And bye.
Bye.